Okay, so factoring completely is no different than factoring. The one thing we're going to be looking for, though, is multiple types of factoring in the same problem. So just factoring a GCF won't be enough. You have to look for factoring a trinomial. This would always be the first thing you look for, which means we're going to start with our factor trees. And then next you would look for one of these two special cases if or after you've factored out a common GCF if there is one. All right, so let's take a look at a couple problems. So again, step one, look for a GCF. Okay, and the way we do that is by doing a factor tree here. Now, some of us haven't really picked up on this yet, okay, but remember, we want to divide this into 3 sections. And some of you just write way too small. That's the problem, all right? And when we do this, you want to write large enough that you can actually see your writing, okay? Notice here that nothing I'm writing is getting squeezed in to the point where I can't read it, that it's not legible. If it's a paper issue, I have plenty of paper. All right, so I do my factor tree. I look for any common factors. In this particular case, I have a 2 in each. So I'm going to write that 2 out in front. And I have an x in each. So I'm going to write that x out in front. Okay, then I'm writing my leftovers. So if I go back through here and find my leftovers, it looks like I have a 2 and an x squared. It looks like I have a 5 and an x. And 3. My signs from the original problem stay the same. Okay, that's what we were doing before. Now we're going to take an additional step, though. We're going to take a look at this trinomial that we have and see if we can do a box diamond for it. Now, some of you have been struggling with this. Again, I can't help but reiterate the point that you need to be doing these problems and staying caught up in class. If you're not staying caught up in class, these things are going to be hard for you. The 2x squared always goes in the bottom left corner, always, every time. The negative 3 always goes in the top right corner. The minus 5x always goes in the bottom of the diamond. That's the setup of the problem. It takes no understanding. It requires no math knowledge to do that. You just follow directions. You multiply these two together to get the top of the diamond. Again, that takes very little math knowledge to do. The next step, though, is the step where you might get stuck. But you've got to be able to set the problems up first. What do we multiply together for negative 6? That adds for negative 5. That would be a negative 6 and a positive 1. So it looks like I'm going to be able to factor this. All right, when I'm labeling the outsides of the box, I'm looking for 2x squared would give me a 2x and an x. You're always going to have an x on each side to get the x squared. Remember that. All right, what times 2x is negative 6? That'd be negative 3, and then 1. All right, so when I write my final answer here, I don't want to leave anything out. Okay, so I have the 2x from the beginning of the problem. That's a parenthesis. I have the 2x plus 1 from my box. That's a parenthesis. And I have the x minus 3. That's a parenthesis. So this is your final answer. All right, factored form. Let's take a look at another example. All right, again, we're going to start with looking for GCF. So 12 would be 3 and 4, and 2 and 2. X squared would be x and x. 75, that's a big one. Let's say 25 and 3. 25 is 5 and 5. All right, and then the x is just x. So when I'm going common factors here, I have a 3 and a 3. Good. So that goes out in front. I have an x and an x. So that goes out in front. Leftovers. Looks here I have 2, 2, which is 4x. Okay. And over here I have, what, 5 and 5, which is 25. Okay. Now I'm looking for, whoop, sorry, I got the symbol wrong there. So I'm looking for another type of factoring. Can I do a box diamond to this? Well, no, it's not a trinomial, so there's no box diamond. Because there has to be 3, okay, there has to be 3 terms. I only have 2. Can I do difference of squares? All right, well, that's possible. Let's look at it. 4 could be a square, 2 squared. 25 could be a square, 5 squared. But the x is not a square. So I would be done, and I need to be able to recognize that. I won't always be able to do multiple types of factoring. Sometimes I'll factor out the first thing, and that'll be it. And then I stop, and that's my answer. All right, let's take a look at one more because I don't want to feel like you're getting cut short here. Okay, so if I look at this one here, and I got x's and y's, this has been one that people have been struggling with, so I wanted to make sure we went over it. All right, in a video that you can rewind and watch as many times as you want. Again, write this out large enough to see. 6 is 3, 2, x cubed would be xxx, and y is just y. All right, the 2 is a least factor already. X squared is xx, y squared is yy. 4 is 2, 2. X is just x, y cubed is yy. Yy is my grade failing. Okay, so go through and look for your commoners. All right, what do they have in common? All right, it looks like a 2 in each, so I'm going to write that 2 out in front. Again, remember my dividing lines. Okay, I have to be picking something from each section. All right, x, y's, it looks like I have an x in each. All right, so I'm going to put that x out in front, and it looks like I have a y in each. So I'm going to put that y out in front. Leftovers, 3 x squared, xy, 2 y squared. Signs stay the same, minus, minus. All right, so is this a trinomial? Yes, it is, because it has 3 terms, like a tricycle, has 3 wheels. So I'm going to try a box diamond with it. All right, now some of you were struggling with box diamonds that had x's and y's in them. Fair game, no different. Okay, the first x squared term goes in the bottom of the diamond, or bottom of the box, excuse me. The second one goes in the top, and the middle term goes in the diamond. I'm still going to multiply these two together to get the top of the diamond. Negative 6 x squared y squared. Now these are harder, so this is not the kind I would give you an individual test. What I multiply for negative 6 that I add for negative 1, that thought process doesn't change. That's negative 3, okay, and positive 2. The 3 has to be the negative because this is negative. So then I get a 3xy and a 2xy. So to get the x squared, I'll have a 3x and an x. I put the 3 here because I have the 3 in this column. To get the 3xy, what am I missing here? I have the 3x. Only thing I'm missing is a negative y. Here, I need a 2xy, and I have an x. So that means 2 and y. So we rewind all the way to the beginning to write my final answer. Don't forget the first piece that we factored out was a 2xy. Okay. Here, I have an xy, or an x minus y. Okay, and then on the bottom of this, I have a 3x plus 2y. No doubt about it, this is a tough one, and this will make a great bonus question when you're factoring out the x's and the y's.